Hey, Lucas. Just wanted to connect with you one last time uh, today before we head out to a few meetings. It's a good time. It's a good time. A few days before I pick up your mom still. But I wanted to share with you something that happened a few weeks ago. For our wedding anniversary, your mom and I went over to the Bahamas on a cruise, and amazing time. It was actually the same cruise where we got engaged. At that time, our parents and your uncles were there. But this time was a little bit different. We actually made it to the Bahamas this time. Last time it was diverted to Canada, and that's a whole other story. But once we got to the Bahamas, I've always wanted to see Paradise Island and the Atlantis Hotel. Now, in order to get there, we were thinking of renting a car, but then we were like, maybe that's not the wisest thing. We just catch a taxi. And we ended up catching a taxi there, no problem. Now, you gotta remember, this is the Caribbean. It's in the middle of nowhere, right? This is the Bahamas. Literally, it's an island in the middle of nowhere. And I think people have no notion of time there. I ended up calling a taxi, and we waited 5, 10 minutes when we saw other people come and go in different taxis, and we were just sitting there. We were like, okay, is this taxi actually coming? And then the guy who ended up helping us order a taxi was like, oh, I totally forgot about you guys. Ended up getting another taxi. Now, this other taxi was an experience I'll never forget. Usually when you call a taxi, the taxi's ready to pick you up and take you somewhere. Well, this taxi pulled up and it already had a family there. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange. I guess it's like a rideshare situation there. So the woman driving the taxi proceeded to explain to me how this way I would be the one that's saving money. Not that I had any choice anyway. They were like, no, this is actually going to help you save money. So we're going to put two families in here. So it's me, my wife, with you inside, and then it's a whole other family in this minivan. So we get in, and once you get in, you think, okay, you tell them the location, we're ready to go. No, like this woman felt like there was still much space in the taxi. Now, you got to understand this. At this point, there's a whole other family in front. There's my wife and I in the back, and I'm thinking, where's she going to fit anyone else? And we're waiting 3 minutes, 5 minutes. All of a sudden, someone at a distance whistle, and they're like, one more. And a guy approaches the minivan, and he's looking around like, where's he going to sit? And I'm looking at him. It's like, where are you going to sit? All of a sudden, the passenger door of the taxi opens up, and he's practically sitting on the armrest of this taxi. So by now, we have 3 different families on this taxi in the Bahamas. And we take off, and let me tell you, I don't think it was seatbelts that we needed. I think what we needed was parachutes, because we were flying all over the place. This woman was a speed demon. She would make left and right, but and I'm like, are we gonna make it? What's going on here? So we finally make it to the location where they were gonna drop us off, where we catch the cruise. And all of a sudden she gets off, and I realize this woman is like 8.5 months pregnant with twins. This woman has a belly that's humongous, right? And our ride fare was like $4 a piece, but all I had was a 20. So I give her the 20. She gives me this look, like the worst look you could possibly get. And she's like, "You don't got any change?" I'm like, no, not really." And then she proceeds to ask other taxi drivers in the area for change. And at this point, my wife and I are like, maybe we should just tip her the rest of the money, because at this point it's like we're just happy we survived, you know. And I noticed that the person that's next to me that has to pay also has a 20. So I'm pretty sure that when this woman comes back and gives me back my 12, she's gonna have to deal with him. And I'm like, man, what is going on in this place? What is going on in this island? Let me tell you, if that was an isolated event, I would be like, Ramon, you just had an awkward day. But I was thinking that my life is filled with those moments. I ended up in another Caribbean island taking a taxi where it started raining and they handed me one of those door handles so I could put down the window. Like, put up the window. It was, I feel like taxis are the way that I'm going to die someday, probably. But now that I look back, they're just crazy, awesome stories. And a lot of those awesome stories, I want you to go with us and live them. I know your mom